Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Iron Canon podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld podcast network for in-depth discussion on the lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I am coming to you from Underworld North Studio in Toronto. And as always, I'm joined across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. I didn't look it, but I almost had a mini panic attack when I saw that the YouTube didn't pop up on our viewing thing. Then it did. Like, okay, I didn't. I thought I put it there. Just like and they're like, nope, we're good. We're all good. We're all
That's
fine.
good to know. It's good to know. It's our primary. We send the podcast to all the other places, but YouTube is where it's at. Where we kind of say we tell everybody, we redirect everybody. So welcome welcome all to the Iron Cannon podcast. Now the home for High Republic, the home for not the home for the Acolyte, but because we're the home for the High Republic, we have devoted this just the next run of episodes to the Acolyte, talking about this show set at the end of the High Republic era. And oh boy, do we have one to talk about tonight? What an episode! Destiny gave us everything and nothing at the exact same time. This week, we roll right along in our commentary of the ideas, the characters, the public perception of this gloriously controversial episode. Gloriously controversial, gloriously chaotic. I'm loving it. We'll get some plugs off the top out of the way. You follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at sorry, one second. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Sorry, at Iron Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD, and then also, of course, YouTube memberships, super chats, Discord here. I'm going to take a phone call. Joel, you keep going. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Oh wow. Okay. This never happens. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, Vincent. Hello, Dr. Bespin. How are we all doing? Yes, this has been a great, quite a hectic week of Star Wars for Acolyte Episode 3. Yes, Destiny. Lots of fun stuff going on. We got all sorts of fun topics to talk about. You know, what's going on? Do we know everything? Why are the Jedi on a planet that's not even in Republic jurisdiction? Oh, tell me about it, Dr. Bespin. I feel your pain there. That and never trust audience scores. Yeah. We're all excited. I mean, I like the episode quite a lot. I mean, I kind of get a little maybe like, the only controversial thing I could probably get is like maybe a placement. Thank you, Dr. Bespin. Its place in terms of a streaming show, but that's just something in general. Oh, thank you. That is a bachelor's degree in political science. Thanks for noticing. So I would like to put that into my Star Wars stuff. That's a guy from Cal State Fullerton, local Cali. So yeah, local California there. But it's so funny looking at the phone call from what I can see from my perspective. But yeah, thank you, Dr. Bespin. Yeah, thank you. I feel like I'm doing a live stream now, just sort of like more of a talking to the audience situation than my usual just full on radio podcast thing where we kind of take questions later. But not that I mind right now, of course. I'm holding down the fort. But yeah. I guess I can talk about. I think next Tuesday there will be a tractor beam. I'll have to see with Matthew. With Matthew back what he said about that. But so yeah, there's that. Oh, is he coming back? Okay, keep going. I gotta keep going. We'll have to come. Yes, we can kill some time. We're back to full convo. Yeah, tell me about it.
All right, yeah,
yay!
I am back for sure. Just a little bit of a scheduling mix up. Don't worry. We're keeping going. Anyway, as you were, I don't know what you were saying, but
I was just talking to the audience in the chat and talking about my political science degree that I have back there.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Sorry. Keep going. Yeah, that's cool. Where'd you get that political science degree from?
Oh, I got it from Cal State Fullerton, so got it here from California. I'm just talking about if there was a tractor beam this week.
Oh yes. So
there we go.
Segue. Great segue. There was no tractor beam this past week because neither of us were feeling too great, and there was only one book, and there there was an Acolyte episode that we're all processing anyways. So that means this Wednesday, Wednesdays are for comics. Comics are for Wednesdays. We're carrying over. It was going to be Darth Vader 47 this Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. We will, we will talk about both Darth Vader number 47 and Jango Fett number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's up for doing the thumbnails, have at it.
By the way, I don't know how Hannah does this. How does she go solo with her talk for so long? I feel like I was stretching myself.
She's Hannah. She knows.
So
yeah, a lot of good. Well, on that note, let us know in the comments. That's great point. Chat comment integration. There we go. Holding down the fort. Yeah. So Dr. Bestman. Speaking of which, wait, hold down the fort here.
Thank you, Dr.
Good job there. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's how you did it. You asked the question. I have a degree in political science too. That's why this podcast works so well. There we
go.
No. Anyway, where were we? Yes. So, have you talked about the Discord yet?
No, actually, I haven't. That's the point. See, someone have to remind me. Yes.
Go ahead, the Discord.
Of course, feel free to follow us on the Star Wars Underworld Discord. Not sure what we're doing this week. I have to consult our friend Ben about that. Nice med school, Dr. Bespin,
nice.
The doctor part. So we do that. We're not sure if we're gonna continue our grand watch marathon because we gotta get to it soon. Otherwise, we're gonna be still on Young Jedi Adventure because there's gonna be a season 2 coming out, and it's probably gonna be another 25 episodes. Or we'll do another game night, maybe some Hunters or something. We do that too. Or we'll try to figure both in. But yeah, in the link below, Star Wars World Discord, where we always chat about all sorts of fun things.
Yes, that's pretty sweet. Yeah, a lot of good combos in there. I keep mentioning this. It is hard to maintain that, but it's been really, really good that you and Ben have done such a great job and fostering a very, very equal community. It's not like in there any of us are anything special. You know what I mean? Like we're just in there chatting. You tag people, so that's the thing. Everyone join the Discord, tag Joel, and ask what his favorite color is. That's your homework. There we go. There we go. I'll pick this up. So yeah, the Star Wars Underworld network. So Star Wars Underworld podcast was how many years ago? It's like maybe 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah, a long time. Even before I was there.
Yeah. Ben Hart and Chris Sequel came together, and then Dominic Jones was doing the website, joined the podcast. Now Dom kind of hosts the podcast. It's the co-led, and then of course Hannah Rayside joined a few years ago, and then everyone switched to YouTube, and we launched a podcast network because Joel and I were getting started on Ion Canon, and this was 2021, and then Tales from Beyond the Galaxy joined up. A few other things, kind of in and around the world. But yeah, check out the Discord. Ask Ben. Ben's the repository of knowledge. So yeah, get in there and ask Ben what the history is. He'll be sure to fill you in because he's been there from the ground up. They've been going a while. Just glad to wave the banner. If Thursday night, there's a good segue. Thursday night, the flagship podcast, the Star Wars Underworld podcast, they go 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You will see this background, most likely, because this is what Dom uses on Thursdays. So it won't say "Let's Go Oilers" because he doesn't like fun. But that's true. There we go. Anyways, so we covered Tractor Beam, we covered that. So let's vamp. Let's talk about the Acolyte a little bit.
I know. Wait. I have an idea. We can talk about Acolyte, but kind of save our good stuff for later.
We're waiting for a guest. Is what's happening.
Yeah. So if you're wondering why this is a weird episode,
so there was some mishaps, but it's okay. Anyway.
I'll be very. One thing I think we can talk about, which is not something I really. I don't say I don't care about, but it's like just something we can just vamp about. It's like the whole streaming kind of model and these stories and the placement. Like there's a lot of controversy around this episode. Controversy with not many quotes.
Oh, there's controversy.
Yeah. Other controversy in dumb ways, but one of the legit critiques I've always heard about this episode, I think is like a bit more something to talk about. It's like sort of its placement
Yeah.
In the season, especially in terms of like the week to week model versus the binge model. And I mean, I'm obviously that their answer has been, well, we're just gonna go back to movies, hopefully in a couple of years. But and whatever future season twos happen and stuff like that, I do wonder if maybe they'll like think of a way to maybe just pace out the plot a little more, or just or maybe make the episodes more episodic. That's sort of the big difference between everything else, with the exceptions of like Andor and Mando. I guess kind of Book of Boba Fett, but I feel like that was a lot more serialized.
Yeah.
Where Mando was way more episodic. Every episode kind of its own mini adventure. Andor was just 3 movies with just 3 arcs in a single 12-issue thing, and then kind of an overarching thing. Yeah. And this is kind of more in the Ahsoka Kenobi vein of kind of the 8-part movie, kind of broken up into chunks for sure. And I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that, because I think streaming is such. It's not a movie, but it's not classic TV either, and it's in this weird hybrid space. It's almost like, I mean, this is the weirdest example. It's almost like releasing fan fiction when it's a novel. Like you're releasing chapter by chapter instead of just the whole book all at once.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I don't know. I don't have big thoughts or like hard thoughts on it, but I definitely can see the frustration and maybe like why this episode for some maybe does, at least as long as you're not like for women, doesn't work for some.
Yeah.
Especially in the week compared to like the whole. Like I can definitely think of some Bad Batch episodes where it's like, oh yeah, Bad Batch episode 2, season 3 probably would not have been so high if it didn't release after before, in that sort of big chunk of 1, 2, 3. But I don't know, Matthew. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have anything we could?
I mean, like we're talking about the placement of this episode in the season, or we're talking about just the way we consume these stories, because
I kind of both. I think kind of both.
Ever since Breaking Bad, ever since even some parts of Deep Space Nine, there's been a sense of kids try telling continuous stories. Deep Space Nine is the first in American TV, the first 3-part episode.
Sometimes 4-part, I think.
No, maybe. I mean, season 7 gets just all one thing. Book of Boba Fett was like an arc, and then a Mando episode, and then an Ahsoka episode, and then or Luke or Grogu whatever episode, and then back to Mando, or back to Book of Boba, whatever it is, whatever his name is. That's why I get confused by that, because that show went all over the place. Little interlude. It'll be quite so. We're talking about also what the placement of this episode is. Why do we get 2 episodes and then it just stops? And I was talking to Dom about this the other day. I think we'll find out. I think we'll find out why this episode. We'll have a better feel about why this episode is now. Last week they did such a great job of giving us the twin reveal, just right there. Now they've done a good job of just not showing us what happened in the fire, showing us what Asha thinks happened in the fire, and just addressing right out of the gate kind of these mysteries that the 2 episodes last week brought up. Addressing, I mean, so I'll get into it. My favorite thing about this episode, and I said this off the top, in a little introduction there, it gave us everything and nothing at the same time. It just refused to actually, if you actually watch it, and that's the thing. Maybe this is a very smug way of putting it, and I'll repeat this multiple times throughout tonight. If you actually watch it, it doesn't actually give you a perspective.
Oh no, I agree with that.
But here's the thing. So many people think it gives them a perspective, and either they love it or they hate it. Now, I love that it doesn't, which may be a perspective itself. I do want to say, like people who just don't even track with the episode. Like but here's the thing: is I have lots of friends who are like, "Oh, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think?" A colleague at work, I was asking what he thought about this, and my mom was all, well, that's interesting that this happens. It really, really plays with confirmation bias. This episode really messes with it. Really reaches through the fourth wall and says, "What do you really think? What do you want to have happened here, and why?" And I think that's actually the most interesting question. And it's it's hard, and so that's really where the I think where the controversy comes from. It gets it, and that's partly why I love it, is because um it's kind of what I love it. It's kind of silly to say also this. I love it because it gives me what I was hoping for, which is a conversation about confirmation bias, a conversation about like I was saying the other 2 weeks ago, about social media and polarization, and how what you see really reinforces what you believe, and you get in this echo chamber, such to the point that there are people who can only see what they see. There are people who can only see to hear, okay, these twins, they may not have a father, and there's a blood sample, and we'll get into all the other Phantom Menace references here. Say, oh no, they've ruined George Lucas, they've ruined Anakin, all that.
Curse you, Leslie Headland, and your lady cooties.
And at this point, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting that they've latched onto that so strongly that they've just read into it what they've wanted to read into it. I think all of us have done that. I know I admit to doing that. I can speak English, I promise. I admit that I've done that by in how I feel about the Jedi in this episode. It's not how other people feel about the Jedi in this episode. And again, that's my own confirmation bias. I think get back to your actual question. This episode has repercussions for how we watch the rest of the season. Clearly, and maybe what we think happened, who we think is responsible for what. Who we think, I'm talking about the fire specifically, but also why is this coven illegal? Why are they not allowed to train kids? I mean, they're not illegal in themselves, but why are they not allowed to train kids? Why were they called this I guess they're kind of illegal. Why are they disbanded? All those or disbanded, like in exile and hiding in this cave.
Can you be illegal if you don't live in the jurisdiction of the government?
Well, that's another good question. Is does Republic law happen whenever the Jedi show up? Right. I mean, that's another conversation. Indara saying, can you agree the Jedi have a right to train children? And rights are things that are guaranteed by, here's our political science background going on right here. The thing about rights, the thing about negative liberty is it's a thing legally guaranteed. And you have a right in the jurisdiction that those rights say you do. I do not have a right to bear arms. I live in Canada. I'm a Canadian citizen. I have never been an American citizen. I don't really want to be, sorry. I don't have the right to, I don't have a constitutional right. I can, buy a gun for hunting, and it has to be really registered, and all my ammo probably has to, I don't know what the rules are. There are rules, but it's not in the Constitution. It's not in the Bill of Rights, in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Jill, you have the right to bear arms. And you have the right for a well-organized militia against that republic. I do not have the right to form a militia against the Crown of Canada.
Thanks, straight. You pledge your allegiance to King Charles.
There we go. I'm a subject of King Charles, which doesn't make sense either.
You're not even a citizen. You are a subject of His Imperial Majesty.
Yeah, well, they don't call him Imperial Majesty. I mean, legally, no. I mean, we also talk about citizenship. Like Canadian citizenship as opposed to like British citizenship or EU citizenship or whatever. Yeah, it's fascinating what Indara says even in that moment. So yeah, I don't think we can answer the question, but maybe this is the answer to your question. We can't answer the question. This is so meta because this is what this episode's all about. Really, we can't answer the question until we see the rest of the series.
Yeah,
We'll only have a better sense of it if we watch it all together and watch it all at once.
Yeah, I know some people who don't watch shows again after it's over. Like,
yeah.
I mean, some people do, some people don't. 1 week and then they're out. That's how most people watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of that it's sort of the multiple audiences, right? You gotta please the bingers, but you also gotta please the week to weeks who are not gonna watch it again and again and again. And then you kind of have to please us, the crazy people who are gonna be watching this 20 times a year.
I will say,
doing.
Sorry, good. No, you go ahead.
Oh no, it's like well, how do you structure? I think I'm thinking more like story structure, right? Like, I mean, I could get into something about the episode in general, about the not the placement, but the point of view. But I'll get to that later. I have some thoughts too. But it's sort of like structurally, like, okay, how do you structure the story in a way to kind of please, not please everybody in like a make story choices, but like, should we put the flashbacks here? Should we spread them out? Should we intertwine them with the first 2 episodes, etc., etc.? Do what they did, which is flashback episode, one big chunk? But you go ahead.
Well, and then to answer, we won't know until the end. I will say, like I was saying last week, rewatchability, because now that we're covering this the first time, I actually don't need to bother to rewatch shows if I know I'm not podcasting about it, which is interesting. I wonder why that is. Even a Star Wars, I'm like, okay, I've seen it. It's good. Love it. I think Ahsoka episode 5 I watched again because I loved it so much.
I have views on rewatchability. Maybe not rewatchability.
Yeah.
But I'm a big advocate, especially if you're like a fan like we are, of rewatching things I think is important, because I think you always want to have the latest viewpoint in your mind. Like, even stuff you hate or love, right? Like, I will, like, I'm kind of going to be very like, Dominic here. Dominic listening. Hi, Dominic. I'm very curious what his view on Rise of Skywalker will be after the Rey film. Not because I think he's gonna instantly love it or anything, but like, when that film's no longer the end point of the timeline, that puts a lot of pressure off that film. Now it's sort of like, it's no longer the last thing. So now just kind of a bump in the road in terms of another thing, whatever the Rey film does, or just even shows in general, right? Like, how does, especially canon junkies like us, how does rewatching this show or that movie kind of now play with our brains now that like new information has come in? But I don't know. That's kind of my thing with rewatching stuff. Obviously, we all have lives and we can't, but stuff like that. But just in terms of the discussion of it all.
So for me, it actually does have to do with like internal story structure, internal editing and whatnot. Like, because I mean, and my sense of, say, episode 1 of the series, it turns out it didn't feel as tight because I'd watch it and I wouldn't feel dragged along, like my enjoyment of a show feeling dragged along. Episode 2 really landed when Asha and May have their moments, and the emotional moments, the tight emotional moments, and how those are built up to those moments. And then it's episode 3. I mean, that's another credit to episode 3. It is the most tight I found. Like, I'm watching it again, second time, and not bored or not knowing, thinking what's going to happen next. So, anyways, we have some good news. News.
Right.
We have our guest. I'm going to bring you in. I don't know if you're ready yet.
We'll wait. You're a little fuzzy on.
There we go. How we doing?
Can you see us?
Are you good?
Ow.
He's founder of Idiotville. Apparently, did F105. The end of F105 music. There you go. I'll message us when you're good to go. In the private chat. There you go. There he is. But yeah, anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, this episode was really, really tight, really clean, and I was really in on it. Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go. Now you're in color. You look a lot clearer. You're kind of frozen.
Oh no! Boy, technical issues and And then this.
Yeah. Are we here? Are you there? There you go. Boring conversation anyway. Anyway.
Oh no!
So what do you think of like what I was saying? Like how rewatchable was episode 3?
I still haven't rewatched episode 3, so I mean I'm bad with rewatching things in general too.
Yeah.
Unless they're like a movie or like an episode of something I really like. Like I think I rewatched episode 6
Yeah.
of oh, are we
Yeah.
back?
Hi, are we good? I think I can't hear you.
Oh
Mike,
no!
mic volume. No, he's muted. Unmuted. We good? We good? We're live on YouTube. Just letting you know.
We love the chaos of this
There
episode.
it is. That's just it right there. This episode has chaos. This episode has chaos. There we go. How we doing? No, I still can't hear you.
Oh no!
I don't know. I don't know what to do. We'll see. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Like, check your phone, check your sound settings, system settings. We'll get going. I don't know. Mic settings. No, I can't do it for there here. Echo cancellation. Automatically adjust mic volume. Now try something. No. Oh, I think I heard something.
Tap tap tap.
There we go. Still can't hear you. Sorry, dude.
No. Chaos of the episode, chaos of the podcast. It's just
okay. Yeah, I don't know if
chaos
it's gonna work. Like maybe try your settings and different things. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay.
no, my computer.
Anyway. In the meantime, let's try me again. Show me again. All good? Yeah.
We just need to hear you.
You just need to hear you, Din. It's okay. No, I think. Oh, I can see you. You look great. Put up slide right on. If you want to say something, just write on it, right on the board, and just put it up on the screen, and that'll work.
That will be hilarious. Now that's how you do a podcast.
Okay. I'm gonna pull you off, and then like leave you in studio and whatever you need to do, and then we'll figure it out. So, yeah, because coffee shop Wi-Fi. I don't think it's gonna work. There we go. Anyway, so
I'm so sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, it's too bad. There you go.
Well, hopefully he gets back here soon.
Either he gets back here, or what I told him is we'll like do kind of a catch-up episode. Just maybe Din and me do something.
Okay, that'd be a shame.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. Well, it would be good just to have his thoughts on this episode specifically. Because I want.
Oh yeah, if you want to use the same thumbnail too, a little behind the scenes, folks. A little behind the scenes stuff. But I mean, yeah, no, it is funny. I did rewatch this episode. I mean, I'm bad at it too. I'm not saying, I did my whole spiel about rewatching stuff. I'm bad at it too. I'm not saying like I am, saying about it.
Yeah.
But I do think
stuff going on, and like I have multiple soccer tournaments to watch right now.
Oh god, yeah. But like I think rewatching things in general is good, both as shows and movies, and like. Like I'll be honest, like I rewatch Force Awakens. I think if I rewatch Force Awakens, I always have more better time with it. Probably now after Last Jedi than beforehand, because I kind of can see those two as like a bigger thing. I like Rogue One enough on its own, but at the same time, I'm really excited to rewatch Rogue One after Andor season 2 and just kind of see that kind of build up. But
watching A New Hope after watching Rogue One.
That's probably an experience.
What I mean though is if I'm watching something like within a few days of each other, the same thing within a few days of each other, if it's well edited, if it's well cut, it's well written, I'm not thinking, oh yeah, this is when do we get to this thing? When do we get to that thing that we know is supposed to happen, right?
Right.
That I already know is going to happen. This is what's happening now. And I care about what's happening now, and I'm thinking about what's happening now, and I'm just in it. And this is why this is so spoiler verse. This is really why, is because my experience of a story is always, I want the visceral. I just want to be immersed in the flow of it and in the characters. And a good show, even with a spoiler, will probably still do that anyway. Good story will do that anyway.
Mhm.
But I like to go along with the surprises of that the characters themselves experience. And so,
Oh yeah, unless it's like something you know it's gonna happen because they market it. It's like Ahsoka for me, as you know, it's just when Thrawn gonna show up. Like,
yeah,
but then in the end, that's kind of the whole plot of the movie. So I mean, not that movie,
the show.
of the show.
Yeah.
But so that stuff like that can't be helped a lot. And I mean, I like what we got as we built up to Thrawn, so it's not like like
that's true. It's one of those things. But even things that are marketed sometimes, like the twin again. I didn't know about the twin. I didn't know about Asha at all. I just thought it was just May. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, let's get into talking about it. Too bad Din can't join us, but we'll definitely get him on somehow sometime soon. Episode 3, Destiny, and yeah, as I'll say again, the plan here. I'm gonna talk for a bit, and then I'll turn it to you.
Matthew, what's your relationship to the High Republic?
What is my relationship to the High Republic? Is that I started a podcast with Marky and Rowe in the name and the title and the logo, and it's my favorite thing in Star Wars. And there you go. Interestingly, here's just a thought that's come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the High Republic really conditioned my approach to this episode. It's part of my pro Jedi bias, and it's pro Jedi bias, and that's the thing is this episode really challenges people to state their biases outright. That's what I mean. And it's something I can't help. It's just what I feel, and it's partly why I was drawn to the High Republic, because I want stories of Jedi heroes, because we don't really get them much. We are not. What I mean is like heroes of Jedi when the Jedi are an order and at their height.
When they're not dysfunctional, as I once read on.
When they're not dysfunctional or extinct, we don't. Yeah. So that. But again, this episode again really, I love it. Because I love being preached at, and I love saying, this is not really what you think. And I was watching it, and I just could tell how people are going to react, and who's going to pick out what, and what the what the feces storm on the on YouTube and Twitter would be like. and at that point, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's Fandom Menace is going to be Fandom Menace. It's 25 years since all that. So, yeah, and Joel, just as you've listed, these really deep themes that doesn't give you an answer, because the answer is what you think. The more important question is what you think, what you care about here. Questions about choice, and can 8-year-olds choose what they want to do with their lives? And if they do, that's great. Knowing, of course, that Asha leaves the Jedi eventually. Truth and lies, right? Who's telling the truth? Who's not? Who has power? Yeah, I'll get to that quote in a little bit, but basically, yeah. I mean, it again. I mentioned subversion, confirmation bias. It really grounds itself in three, I think, thesis quotes here, and I'll list them. And I definitely want to ask Din about this one. He did a bit of a write up on Facebook. I don't know if it's public for public consumption, but this one, a great, really key quote by Mother Anastasia. Asha and May are debating. The Jedi are good. No, the Jedi are bad. And Mother comes in and says, it's not about good or bad, but about power and who gets to wield it. And I found that fascinating for multiple reasons. Yeah, the good and bad, the good and bad binary, it's in the mouths of 8-year-olds. Mm-hmm. As if to say, to really hold fast to that binary is the way kids have to think and have to live. But grown-up life can be more complicated. And so the whole question of good or bad, it's talking about good or bad power, who gets to wield it, that's put in the mouth of a witch and the leader of a witch coven, but not Mother Coral, but Mother Anastasia. the sympathetic one, the one we know has heart, we know cares about both of her daughters, cares about her community.
Well, I'm sure Brother Coral does too, just more aggressively.
Sure, we see it more intimately with Mother Anastasia.
She's the
Coral
leader
definitely cares.
with Anastasia.
Coral definitely cares. It's true, but deeply we see a lot of deep love and affection for her daughters and for her community.
She's the leader, so yeah.
She's a leader, but she's their mother, right?
Right.
My point is, we're supposed to trust her in saying this statement that could go against the Jedi, that if it was in Mother Coral's mouth, I would dismiss it. I would be like, oh, that's just, I would kind of join the fandom menace a little bit. Try not to. I'd see, oh, they're picking this out, what they want to see. But if it was Mother Coral, it'd be, yeah, that's kind of woke, if you know what I mean. It's this hard edge, and we're not necessarily supposed to trust it. Mother Anastasia, it's progressive. It's questioning authority for sure, but it's from her perspective, and so we're meant to trust it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, we have Master Soul and his quote. Asha, trying to get Asha to be honest in the test, pass the test. Yeah, there's a little bit of manipulation going. Here was my experience. Is it manipulation or is it just convincing? Where's the line there? Is it just him trying to show that she could be safe with the Jedi? That's up to you. But what he says, have the courage to say what you want. She says, I want to be a Jedi. Then you have the courage, have the courage to tell the truth.
Right. And
a few things, I mean, it's important for 8-year-olds to hear that, for kids to hear that. It's important for adults to hear that too. And I really love that line because we know Soul's journey is going to be learning to, hopefully, I hope it's going to be him learning to tell the truth about
whatever happened.
Whatever happened, but how the Jedi were complicit in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's clearly covered that up. He's clearly covered that up. He's clearly not being able to reconcile with that. So yeah, the courage to tell the truth. But then does Soul lie to Asha about the fire and about Nay and whatnot? We have one last shot, or not one last shot, one more shot with Din. Let's see. How's it going?
Hey,
we can hear you.
We can hear you. You're live.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was a really epic. I think I just lost my coffee mug, my travel mug, and the whole thing trying to find a place to go.
Oh, no.
This is a whole. I'm sorry, guys.
No.
I think I'm under too much pressure with this upcoming tour and everything that's happening with the label and my album and stuff. I'm not thinking straight. I had this in my phone for tomorrow.
Oh no, that's okay.
Yeah.
So on that note, welcome to Din from F105. How's it going? It's a nice swing you got there. The exit sign. Well, I'm sure you can hear us. You can ask, speaking of that tour and music, what's doing for you lately?
What's that?
Well, so speaking of the tour, you talk about, yeah, what's so what is on your mind with the tour and your album and whatnot? Do you have anything to plug there?
No, the new album is out. Baby Makes 3 Mix. Listen to it on Spotify or wherever. And I'm going on tour from LA to Victoria, BC at end of July, early August, 2-week tour. Yeah, so that's that.
There you go. Excited for it?
Man, I'm really frustrated that in all this mess, I lost my coffee travel mug.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's the chaos of the dark side. There we go.
Yeah.
So why don't you take it away with some questions there?
Oh yeah. So Din, welcome to our podcast. So I asked every guest this question during the entire Acolyte thing. show that's going on. The first question is, Din, what is your relationship with the High Republic Initiative? Have you read any books, comics, any of it?
No.
Okay. Well, that's moving on.
Okay, I know
Well,
there's a bit.
the thing is, I used to read all the Star Wars stuff when there wasn't anything on TV, like everything, pretty much, you know. And ever since The Force Awakens came out and Disney bought Star Wars, that spurred a whole new mega industry, that along with the success of the MCU at the time, of fantasy and sci-fi genre content on screen. I can't even keep up with that, let alone read everything, you know? So it's not that I wouldn't want to read it. It looks really interesting, especially how it's analyzing the state of the Jedi and what might lead to this show and then lead to the prequels. Analyzing their beliefs and their hubris and all that. And I'd love to read it. I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
I barely have the time to watch everything.
No, I feel that we had a whole discussion about rewatching things, let alone watching things. So no, that's completely understandable. It's a lot to take in.
I do check out your shows now and then, and I watch all the recaps, you know, on Star Wars Explained and all that. So I have an idea of what's led up to now, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
What you say is what you know is what you watch most.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, go ahead, John.
No, that was the only question. But speaking of Jedi hubris and all that, Matthew, let's maybe talk about again.
Hold on, I don't want to back up because there's then just a follow-up question there. You know, what's it like to jump into this show then, and you know, with what you do or don't know or don't feel about the High Republic, as in to jump into this show in this era and encountering it relatively new. Vern is relatively new because clearly I have a different perspective from you. So I'm curious to hear that part.
What's the question?
So what's it like encountering this era on screen relatively new? So because you haven't read the books and whatnot.
The era, yeah.
Yeah, and for example, Vern as a new character.
Well, that's why I'm actually glad I haven't read the books.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember the last time I went into Star Wars really not knowing much about it, or even just who the characters are. That's the biggest thing. So fresh in this show to really have a show where I don't know a single character so far. And getting to know them, and what I'm looking forward to is getting to know them slowly and falling in love with new characters, you know, where they become part of my life slowly over the next, few more episodes.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right, well, we can go back to talk about the episode. We were talking
enough Jedi hubris.
Yeah, Jedi hubris. Joel, if you want to take it away, go for it.
No. Oh no. I mean, you were on your great spiel.
I was on the spiel.
Yeah, we're just a great spiel about this episode and like perspective. I guess I'll bring something up since I think this is something that you'll probably get into anyway, Matthew. A lot of people have pointed to like a Rashomon effect. As we all know, the classic movie Rashomon. But the thing I think that I would disagree with just a little bit with the Rashomon thing is that compared to Rashomon, where we have the present day story and then flashback where somebody says, well, here I was and this is what I saw during that day. This episode doesn't start off with the present day of Ultra going like, I remember that day in the fire 16 years ago. Flashback. No, it's just flashback. This is the objective as possibly you can be, flashback. It's not point of view so much. But this is where things get complicated. It is point of view because clearly there is something else going on where there's like, it's almost like it'd be like if the editor cut out certain scenes of the flashback. Like we have the whole flashback, but they cut out certain points to make this particular narrative a flashback. So then eventually we'll get the other narrative, which both happened, but you kind of almost have to watch both of those things as one big whole. And right now, we only have part one. Sorry for rambling there, but Dan, I'll just toss it to you. What did you think of the episode itself? What do you think of the episode?
I couldn't be happier. There's been a few moments in Star Wars since Disney purchased it of things that I really, really wanted. One of the biggest things, obviously, just seeing Ahsoka and Anakin live action. That's my favorite relationship in all of Star Wars. The other might be, I grew up with the OT, so it was a genuine thrill to see Luke and Chewie were home. That stuff. So sort of like this bucket list of moments that I've wanted. Mortis, to see Mortis again. We know we're going to get that in season 2 of Ahsoka. The Mortis statues at the end of season 1. Those are like the biggest things that come to mind. But even though I grew up with the PT, I have the most nostalgia and love. I grew up with the OT. I have the most nostalgia and love for the PT because of everything it's suggesting in terms of understanding layers and nuances of history and spirituality and philosophy and all. Like the greatest quote in Star Wars is, to my opinion, your focus determines your reality. That's what this existence is. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, they create your reality. Spelling, casting a spell, that's the word, spelling.
Right.
That's where that comes from. And that ties into this episode with the witches and all that. So to see, to make a very, very, very long story short, here's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see that someone like Sabine use the Force. From my point of view, studying history and mythology and world civilizations and all that, my point of view is the conflict of our whole entire history has been a conflict between those who have power and enslave people and those who try to free people and give all people access to power, whether it's political and democracy and all that, but it's even spiritual. Our whole history is, I'm sorry, I'm going off the top of my head, but the Inquisition, which killed arguably up to 18 million people, was started to kill Gnostic heretics in France, which means knowledge, which is what this episode is about. This is about the knowledge of the Force, and what's the quote? This is about power. What's that?
It's not about good or bad. It's about power and who gets to wield it.
Yeah, good or bad are what we make up, thankfully. That's the good thing about how we create our realities. We decide what's good and bad. But the Force exists outside that. It's creation and destruction, light and dark, and all that. And so Palpatine has a statue in his office, a Sithari statue, which is, he's got his hands clasped like that with the hood on. And that is a direct reference to one of the most famous statues in history, which is Giordano Bruno. His statue like that is in Italy, and he was a Gnostic who was killed for having different beliefs. And so I always figured that, why is that in Palpatine's office? Because Giordano Bruno wasn't an evil guy. He wasn't a Sith. He just believed in people like Copernicus, who believed that the sun was the center of our solar system and planets were traveling around it. And he was killed for that. He was also killed for suggesting there were multi-universes and endless planets and light. And so why does Palpatine have a statue of it? It suggested to me that at one time, the Sith were probably good people who were just considered heretics and persecuted for it, and they learned to survive through secretive means. And those tools for secretive means were then subverted by people like Palpatine and Plagueis, and turned the good belief system into evil. So that's a long rant. That's what I think about this whole show.
Okay, that's fair. I personally think that good and evil are things, and that that's what George always said: good, bad. We don't know. We'll see the Sith hopefully soon. But Matthew, how about you, Spawn? You were going on like confirmation bias earlier in perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta interject on that because let's stay grounded in Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, the Mortis trilogy was expressing the fact that dark and light exist beyond beyond our morality. It's just the way the universe is, creation and destruction. Like the son says to Anakin, and I'm not going on my belief system here. I'm just repeating what George Lucas put in Star Wars. Obi-Wan calls the son Sith, and he says the Sith, the Jedi, as if one is dark, light, good, evil, as if one could exist without the other.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if I've always agreed. Oh, it's complicated for sure. Although I
Well, it's not about agreeing with it. It's about taking what's presented in the Mortis trilogy. You know,
So
for our own lives, we could agree, disagree. I'm just talking about what's in Star Wars.
So
what's in Star Wars is that the Force exists beyond the morality.
Why don't we go with what we have in this episode?
Yeah.
So why don't you just go for it with what you prepared? And, we can go through it.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, I mean, this episode had a lot of great themes to it. That's for sure. It had about power. It's about choice, truth, and lies. One of my favorite things about this episode is the agency. That's right. That Asha has this episode with wanting to be a Jedi and she wants more than to be in the coven. Although whether or not an 8-year-old should decide to be a Jedi, that's such a big long time commitment. That's certainly something to talk about for sure. But I really love that theme of choice and choosing what your destiny should be. Obviously, yes, there is the power. Obviously, seeing the Jedi in a planet that's not even in Republic territory. What are we doing? What are they doing there? And of course, truth and lies. Who is what's being kept, what's being hidden away. But Matthew, I'll throw this one to you. What theme really stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, what Din is hitting on it with power, and truth and lies. I mean, yeah. So the Soul's quote about the courage to tell the truth. Is there something about how the courage to tell the truth does actually enable someone to wield power in a constructive way? That's possible, but yeah, again, I've going back to this. It's in this episode. I think we all see a lot of what we want to see, and we see, and it gives us what we connect with, and so yeah, it's hard to explain so much, but yeah, that's kind of where I'd land.
Yeah. Dave, what about you? What theme of the three I wrote stood out to you the most? I mean, I'm sure all of them did.
Well, obviously, this is about power and who's allowed to use it. So let me just get out of the intellectual area here. The God, the Force, Allah, Chi, life force, Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, thread, whatever name you want to give it. It's just a point of view, and it's just a word that has no bearing on the fact that it's everywhere and in everything, And this idea that what I was saying about what I always thought that statue represented in Palpatine's office was that there are people who try to control who has access to God, but God in the Force is everything and in everyone. So it would.
Guys, I'm gonna close the.
It's not something that anyone can. Every life has with consciousness has the divine force given. Yeah, I heard you.
Okay.
I'm so frustrated tonight. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, let me take a breath here.
Yeah. Find your inner power.
Because this is the most important message that I wanted to see in Star Wars, aside from Sabine choosing to use the Force. That everyone has the divine right simply because they exist to connect with their creator, to the Force. And no one has the right to tell anyone else that they should be separated from that or they can't access it. You know, and then when I say that's just because that's just out there and that's there, you know, when I say that good and evil doesn't exist, but that we make it exist, your focus determines reality. That's a good thing. That we should decide, you know, that killing others is evil and bad. And but that has nothing to do with the fact that this energy field that is God or the Force is in everyone and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get it. Like, you know, the I think actually, you know, I mean, I would make this too much of a fourth tangent. I want to keep the focus, focus my own determination, my own reality on this episode. But no, I love that as well. You know, this episode also, you know, did have a lot of interesting things to say about the Force outside of that power, like the twins' burst. You know, there was something of the Force that might have burst these twins. Obviously, it's not. I believe they weren't born of the Force in the same way Anakin was, but I do think they were born with it. I do think there was some forciness going on, which the witches clearly were a little nervous about the Jedi finding out because probably Jedi find out and then they get all mad about that and what we thought would happen at the end of this episode. But you know, I mean, well, we didn't see, so that is a question. But yeah, I mean, there's something going on with how the twins were born and something with the Force. So I'll throw this one to you, Matthew. Like, what did you take? You know, you're a big, you know, Chosen One Anakin guy. You know, when you heard stuff like this being mentioned about the Force and the twins, what was your thoughts?
I could immediately. Oh, I could almost predict like the Phantom Menace stuff going on. They ruined everything. They ruined Anakin, and I thought, oh, that's kind of like Anakin. Interesting, and also, I mean, the end of Charles Soule's run, and the fuss that came up out of that, similar kind of thing. I'm also, you know, drawing in, you know, the Plagueis reference, and okay, there is some sort of Force magic thing happening that I think is meant to be distinct from Anakin. In part because I want it to be. There's my bias, sure, but also, yeah, I mean they're a sect that the Jedi consider to be unnatural, right? And you know, again, we could debate that or not, but I think they're you know, Mother Anastasia definitely says I created them. She has this agency there to create that life, whereas Shmi says he just showed up. You know, so there's an important distinction there. We don't know what that means. We don't quite know what that means yet. You know, we don't know how we're supposed to think or feel about that. Again, I think the whole point of this whole episode is the important question is, how do you think or feel about this? Right? What do you find important about this or not? And we don't know what the story is going to give us with Mayanosia. There is something, again, what I was saying last week, I think, about twins, and I wonder if Mother Anastasia intentionally creates twins to maybe create this yin yang situation, and to create this sense that, you know, light and dark are one connected whole, and playing with the dyad idea. But clearly, I mean, we see May and Asha's characters, and I mean, maybe we're reading into them because we see Asha becomes a Jedi and May is probably the Acolyte, Sith Acolyte, and so, you know, the shadow side there. Yeah, it's fascinating to learn that is an intentional choice on the part of this character, this Mother Anastasia. And, you know, what does that mean? What does that mean for her relationship to the Jedi? Surely it means she's suspect by the Jedi. What does that mean for her relationship to the Sith? Maybe she's suspect to the Sith as well, because she created someone who can seek the light. So it's I don't know.
Yeah, what I'll toss that to you. Your question to you. What did you think of the mystery of the twins, and how did you read into it, or did you read into it?
First off, I've got to apologize, guys. I messed up by having this in my calendar for tomorrow night, and now here I am at McDonald's trying to record and snapping at people yelling at me to move. When I heard them the first time, it's very unprofessional, and I'm sorry.
Oh no, it happens. Hope you're getting a nice McDonald's thing though.
Yeah, and my battery is gonna die soon.
Oh no.
So maybe if you don't mind, at some point you could have me on again, and I could be a little more professional.
Oh, absolutely, Dan. You are a welcome guest on our podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I do think I said everything I really need to. That's really important to me. That no one has the right to tell anyone else that they can't connect with their creator. In terms of understanding the twins, I don't have much to say about that because I love the fact that I have no clue. Because George Lucas, I love that I'm being delighted and surprised. George Lucas himself said, did Plagueis create Anakin through his experiments, or did the Force respond to that by the Force creating Anakin to balance what Plagueis was doing? He basically said, well, it's up to the viewer, So I hope they do leave it a little bit like that. I do think in terms of a more practical thing about what Plagueis is doing, any great invention or knowledge base like science is always based on like a lot of many years, maybe even decades, or even a century or centuries of research and experiments that led up to it. So in something like creating a life, and what Plagueis is trying to do, or to cheat death, it makes sense to me that he would be expanding on other people's knowledge and other experiments. So sort of the twins being set up by what's going on with these witches, makes sense to me, that there's a knowledge base, and that's what's unnatural, and to tie that into what's happening with mythology. There's two trees in Genesis. Do you guys know that? Matt, do you know there's two trees?
Yes.
So there's the tree of knowledge, which Eve eats from and convinces Adam, right? But then Yahweh says, oh my, he basically says, oh, this is horrible. Like, if they're eating from the tree of knowledge now, knowledge, gnosis, that's what, it's a big theme that's been running through all Star Wars. When Ahsoka's going to Malachor, Ezra asks, what are we doing? And she says, we're looking for knowledge. So she's looking for the knowledge of dark and light in Anakin, or in general. And so I'm losing my train of thought, but I was going to it.
Potentially, or
sorry, where did that start?
The twins and George Lucas and
the trees. The second tree is the tree of life. So Yahweh says, we got to stop them now and banish them, because soon they'll eat of the tree of life and be like us. Yeah. Us too, which is weird because it's plural and God's supposed to be singular, and I never got that. But what that means is that the tree in this episode is not just representing the tree of knowledge, but the tree of life. So this is where we get into moral territory now, because just because you have access to this power, it doesn't mean you should wield the power to create life. And if you do, this needs to be a serious thought of, this needs to be, is it being used for good or evil? I do know that from the Plagueis novel that what they were getting at was, and I forget the exact quotes, but Plagueis was not, his evil was not just that he was using the dark side. he was a step further, and Palpatine's a step further, because what they're actually doing is not co-creating with the Force. They're trying to have power over the Force to be it. That creator, Plagueis said something like he wanted the Force to submit to his will. So the tree of life in this episode, and biblically, what it all is representing to me is that you don't want to co-create with God or the Force. You actually want to dominate it and have it submit to your will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think this might be going with the twins, and that's what might be unnatural. That's all I can say on it at this point.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to be honest. When I saw that stuff, I've been like, ooh, I wouldn't mind if like, you know, the witches did this thing, and it's not really evil, but then not very nice people saw this and are like, how can we use this for our own selfish advantage? And then, like, you know, they take that technology or that magic or that the force power or whatever it is, whatever the thing, the answer is, if they even give us an answer. I hope it's vague too. And, you know, it's like, okay, we're going to take this, but now we're going to push it in a different direction. And but then the Force is like, oh, no, you're not going to do that. You can't do that, Plagueis. That's a big no. Time to push back. Chosen one time.
Yeah, that's how I always took it. The Force was going, no, the Force does not submit to your will. You're a co-creator with us, and if that's where the imbalance really happened, you know?
No, I agree, and you know, and I do wonder to kind of just, I don't want to speculate too much and focus again on the episode, but you know, this should be around the time where, you know, that the balance of the Force is starting to get a little shaky these days, you know, as we get closer, obviously, to episode 1 and then obviously Clone Wars. So, you know, at this point, the Sith are kind of looking at this stuff and like, we should be messing with this stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they're starting to really shake the core of the Force and the balance and all that good stuff. But
it makes me think of Project Necromancer, right?
Yeah, look,
I mean, that's all in with Palpatine's step, but you know, it's the kind of thing where, yeah, trying to, well, it's, at least in terms of things that are iterating. Yeah, it starts with Omega, and who knows what Nala says. Maybe she's just trying to do something interesting. And so nothing is more important to the future of our empire. And then, of course, we have Grogu with Gideon, and then
right.
Yeah, that's iterating. That's a good thought.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that it could have all started from a more benevolent, you know, place of just maybe this witch wanted children, because who, you know, wants to have kids. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I mean, since we're talking about it, let's talk about the witches a little bit. I found them really fascinating, and just as a coven, as a people, you know, they're not Night Sisters. I've read an interview. Leslie hasn't said they're not nice. They're not Night Sisters. They're just other witches. We've seen other witches. You know, Tales of the Jedi. We saw the Mountain Clan, so we knew there are other witches. And you know what they say about the Force isn't any different really than what Yoda is saying. It's just, you know, life. All of us are connected to it, and you know they really are getting at the idea of like, you know, you pull the thread. It's almost like a little like butterfly effect. And so, well, you know, you pull the thread of one person, and then that affects another person. And I like their whole kind of their ideology about the Force. Like, yeah, one Force user that can do a lot, but two Force users together that can do even more. And then a bunch of them together, you can move mountains. You know, it's very communal. And it does seem like they're kind of a collection of various individuals that, you know, I mean, you know, you got a human, you got Zabrak, you got other aliens who are just random aliens, but they don't seem to be like belonging to a singular planet or culture. They're just kind of like all Force users who kind of believe in this witchcraft. And I really found them fascinating. But well, Deb, what did you also this one? What did you think of the witches? What did you like about their coven?
Oh, was that to me again?
Yeah, I was just asking what do you like about them?
I do appreciate that because my battery's going to die. So I like what you said about that. You know, I keep thinking about the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.
Mhm.
First of all, Joseph Campbell always talks about this. The symbols in spirituality are the doors that we walk through to enter the heavenly realms. And they evoke with that in us. It's the archetypes are in our DNA, and so right off the bat, it's three things: the power of one, the power of the two, power of many. You got a trinity. Um, the Wherever two or more are gathered in my name, there I am also. Or scientific experiments that are now showing the more people that pray for someone, statistically those people get cured more than people that don't get prayed for. And so it's that's just a wonderful way of saying what has always been said since the most ancient of times in all the traditions. And it's a little bit quantum physics too. Focus determines your reality is as well. The double slit experiment that showed that the atoms start behaving differently if we observe them. So our thoughts scientifically are being proven to affect atomic reality. Strings are a part of, there's apparently many strings inside atoms, and there's string theory. So it's doing what I think spirituality should do in our time, which is kind of evoke all the tradition of the symbols and then add the new scientific quantum mechanics stuff to it.
Yeah, I definitely got some of that now that you kind of bring it up. But hopefully your battery doesn't die after I ask Matthew this question. But if it does, that's fine.
That's the 5% warning.
Okay, we might lose you. I hope we don't.
Yeah, I know where you live.
But that's up to you. What did you think of the witches?
So,
not the Knights, but
then I'm glad you're here, because the one book I kept trying to get you to read was Path of Deceit, which introduces us to the path of the open hand. And I really, there was one quote, so they don't have the same philosophy as the path of the open hand. They're able to actually commune with the force, and I'm being very careful to not say a certain word that she says. Right? They're very careful to touch the force and block me and whatnot. And clearly, the ritual involves the Star Wars space magic that's happening, the energy field. She does say something very interesting. She said that there's some who claim to use the force, wield the force like a tool, and very much in line with what the path of the open hand believes, in that their whole philosophy was, anyone who uses the force, there's going to be a karmic negative that happens somewhere else. Someone, if you use the force to save a life, someone else is going to die. And it's very deterministic. It's very, they're very absolute and strict about it. The path of the open hand is, but the idea that the power of many, the implications of what we do, and maybe this is a way we can talk about morality, right? Talk about implications. Talk about, if I make a choice, does that benefit someone else or not? And if I make a choice, even if I'm complicit in it or not, he's gonna anyway. That way. That's okay. We'll get Din on for maybe like a special, just sit down to chat about the Acolyte at some point. Maybe like our post series look back or something. Another special time we can.
You talk about the Force.
We talk about the Force. We can't record at any point. I thought it was fascinating. It's this offshoot coven, offshoot sect on this, not offshoot, just secluded group, this very pastoral area, led by a woman, led by a Black woman.
I think they're all women. I don't think there's any men.
Yeah, they're all women. But specifically just the residents with the mother there, I found. Yeah, I wonder if they're intentionally tying something in. I even noticed something on their foreheads, right? On her forehead. So yeah, very much path of the open hand. That gets me thinking, our friends, the Daughters of Ferrix, did their
the episode on the path of the
on the path of the open hand, and
It's a good episode. Go watch.
Yeah, and they were all and I mean I need to get into it more, but so yeah, there's a lot to be inspired by them, especially Marta, great grandmother or great grandmother, gifts freely given, and getting a sense of that connection. But also, why are they secluded? And yes, they're illegal. And why are they illegal? And it raises all these different questions. And I mean, that's the thing of having that history from the High Republic and conditions my reading of this coven, which again goes against what I was saying about Mother Anastasia, right? This what I say this what are my words? That quote about good and bad, about power in a very trustworthy character. So I think Din might still be with us. I don't know, Din, are you still with us? Or
Yeah, I'm still with you. I think I could do one more question because my battery saver turned on and I lost connection and I got it back for just a bit.
okay.
I do want to add on to that by saying that in this 3D reality, there is light and dark, and there is I think evil is anything that harms someone else, or separates you from someone else, because everything is one, so that you should then treat everything like it's you, creation and life, and recycle, to make your planet a better place. I just want to be clear. I don't want to get off the line by sounding like someone that doesn't believe in good and evil. I'm just saying it's part of. We're co-creators with God, so we co-create and we decide what's good and evil, and that's a good thing, and we should always update. And our new things come up in all times. Like new things come up in our time. This whole transgender thing. So we could say that it's evil if you're going to be prejudiced or discriminate against this life that is transgender, and so now we're defining that good and light would be to be supported and see yourself as one with someone who's trans, and I hope that's clear.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make that clear that we need to constantly reevaluate what's good and evil.
I think
for the context of time.
What you're getting at a lot of is the words, is the language, and just the words we use, and to be careful about and being reflective on what we're calling good and what we're calling evil.
Yeah.
Which this episode does a lot.
And also, the sun says dark and light as if one could exist without the other. This is so important. It doesn't mean, choose the dark. It just means that the light can't exist without the darkness of the void.
So actually, me and Din were on the same side of this one.
Yeah, and creation can't come without destruction. Life dies, winter comes, and then life is reborn. So then, in this 3D illusion of free will and choice, we get to choose. I'd rather be a part of the light and choose oneness and to help others that are me. Everyone is me. Everything I look at is me.
That's Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon says he wants to be part of the light because it's the light.
I will say this. I wonder if in Star Wars it's definitely clearer than in kind of my own kind of Augustinian Western Christian thing. Okay, the text that it gives me, is definitely more of a that light needs darkness, and for me to reflect, okay, what could that possibly mean?
You just can't exist without it.
And
also, we don't have the choice without it. In a universe without dark and light, how do we could go exist beyond life and death in the sixth dimension of Mortis or whatever it is, but it's in this universe where our choices have consequence, and then they are then good or evil, they are light or dark. But it's a beauty. But that's how our souls probably couldn't evolve much on Mortis because no one, you know what I'm trying to say. Like in this dimension, we have the ability to choose, and that's how we can grow by the choices.
Yeah. And Din, I was thinking about what you said earlier, and maybe I don't know what they'll do with the Sith in ancient times. They haven't written that story yet, but maybe the Sith, were more like, you know what? destruction is part of the natural world, we should maybe just, look at it a little differently. But then you're right. People like Palpatine come in, it's like, ooh, destruction, fire. I'm going to use it to hurt people because I'm just a psycho. Zap, zap at everybody. So take the natural kind of destructive nature of the world, like fire in the first episode. But fire is natural, fire is destructive, but it's people using fire for more malicious intent compared to more like just, fires happen and then they re-soil the world. But, that's not what Palpatine would use fire for. He'd use it for something probably not very nice that doesn't re-soil the world. Build his industries. Not just something that popped into my head. If you hear that. But
I wish my battery wasn't going to die and I could talk with you guys. I thought I really had this.
That's okay.
I was going to be so prepared for tomorrow, and I'm so sorry. And thank you for having patience with me.
Of course, Dan. You're always welcome to come back on. We could talk about the Force for hours.
We'll sort something out. We'll sort something out for sure. I know where you.
Yes.
I just want to. Can I just say one last thing before I go?
Yeah. Say what you want.
I just feel like Leslie Headland is the Padawan apparent. To me, she seems like the student of Dave Filoni, George Lucas, and Rian Johnson all in one. So I'm totally happy. But I just feel like there's something really great going on here, and I can't wait to see more of it. It just feels like this feels like Star Wars, and like Star Wars being new again, unexpected. Yeah.
Well, it's certainly the most new thing in the new era, unless you're reading the book. So yeah, you're not wrong.
But also really getting us to ask these questions and think about this. The way that Mando does sometimes, but this is every moment.
I mean, I loved it all. It all has its good stuff, but there's just something here that's just so really digging deep into the themes that George set up. Like even on a simple level, the old elder in the Coven with all the makeup on, they could have just hired any old actor, but the way they did the makeup and face stuff made her actually look like a Clone Wars elder. Like stylistically, she looked like right out of animated Clone Wars. So there's a lot of PT and Clone Wars love going on for the visuals and for the deeper theme. Yeah, that's great. Finally, they have some diverse voices.
Yeah,
I gotta go, guys. I'm so sorry about this.
No, Dan, that's okay. That's okay. But we will hope we have you on again. Bye-bye.
Well, I know you guys. I got to thank you for being good friends, because tonight you saw me at my worst, but we still made it work for a bit. So thank you.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Love you guys. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. But, back on the witches. By the way, Din's right. So that witch, Elder Pete.
Yeah, the Weequay.
I thought it was Maz Kanata species for a second.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
But
the hat kind of changes things. Yeah.
But one thing I do love about the witches, I kind of want to stay on this for a little bit longer. Is I really like that they did not portray the witches as just evil witches, right? Like that, like Night Sisters. Yeah, most Night Sisters aren't the greatest. They're working for evil fascistic Thrawn.
Eventually.
Marin's probably the exception, but I don't know what she's tapping into at this point.
I mean, Ventress ends up going in a good direction, but yeah.
But these witches, they don't call themselves the Force, and obviously there's something going on when they take over Torben's mind. But for the most part, it just seems like just the natural Force. It doesn't seem like the dark side or the destruction, just the Force.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's the same thing. This whole episode to me is, why are they in exile? Why are they illegal? Did they do something? And it's all a matter of, do you trust the people who made them illegal, or do you not? Do you think there's a good reason for them to be in exile and not able to raise children, or not? What are they teaching? Are they? Here's the thing: are they seeking curiosity and knowledge, and seeking to actually build a better world? Are they like a an eco collective, or are they homeschoolers who are teaching their kids that evolution and global warming aren't a thing? You know, that's kind of bringing up the Daughters of Ferrex thing, right? A little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
So, you know, and so it's, yeah, it's, or you know, I mean, and it's not that it should be illegal for people to teach their kids wrong things, but I mean, they should at least be able to go to school too and different things. But like worse, like teaching things was there something actually that happened, you know, connecting to the Sith? And so yeah, it raises those questions and it doesn't answer them.
No, and one more thing, and we talked about this at the beginning.
Yeah.
About this episode. Sorry, fellas. I mean, this is a chaotic episode, but we pulled through. We pulled through. Talk about how we trust Mother and Anastasia. Anastasia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, when Osha kind of goes to her like, yeah, I kind of want to be a Jedi. She doesn't just say, no, you cannot be a Jedi. I forbid you.
Yeah.
Stay in your room. She just says, you know, like, I will talk to the community and I will take your opinion into account, you know, and, you know, whether or not you should say, you know, you should go, oh, she should just let her go or not, you know, like, maybe that's also a bit of that bias. But, you know, yeah, and Mother Anastasia is like, no, I will listen. I will take your opinion into account.
Yeah.
I still have to deal with the community because obviously, you know, she's the leader of the community. She had to take that responsibility as well. But she is weighing that her daughter's own opinions here. She's not just dismissing them. And I think that's another big thing of why, like, I don't think the witches are super bad. You know, again, like, real cults don't let you leave. But if they let you leave, or they're going to let you leave, even if it's sad, you know, that to me is not as big a red flag as a cult that actually does not let you leave. Once you're in forever. Which,
I mean, it's interesting because she also leaves the Jedi. And that's not depicted. It's depicted as sad, but she's not shunned by them.
Which is why I don't think the Jedi are a cult, because the Jedi can leave.
Right. But that being said, you know, I get this interesting quote by Nathan. Again, here's what he's pulling out of this. They're going to finish the story with the Jedi being the villain. And again, I might have a different opinion, a different perspective of you. I'm curious, Nathan, you know, what in this do you see, and why is it that you think that? I'm genuinely want to know what people are reacting to in all these different ways. I do want to come back to Main Ocean, to the twins, because this is well in the question to leave and to stay. It ties into that. Yeah, because, and you know, that could be, you know, the thing with the Path of the Open Hand, for example. They go in a very collectivist direction in a cult-like way. They end up being the Nile, which is odd. They're not collectivist; they're very individualist. But it's almost this wild allegory for rampant capitalism. I'm just thinking this now. These guys, the Nile,
rampant capitalism that leads to fascism, pretty much.
In that, yeah, you can go do what you want, but the pressure to be a dog-eat-dog, winner-take-all marauder is so great that everyone just ends up doing that. And you can't actually be otherwise, or you're an enemy of the Nile, or you're suspect, or not, that we see even in Defy the Storm, for example. And some different examples. Yeah. So I don't want to talk about, and so this is why I want to talk about Mia-Nosha, because this is just another way that it really subverts confirmation bias. So you have them having this binary, this immature binary of good and evil, of good and bad. I would say it's counterbalanced by an all too complicated refusal of the binary, rejection of the binary by Mother Anastasia. And yet she's sympathetic, and we're supposed to at least accept she's genuine, again, as opposed to Mother Coral. One of the great things, and this is, again, the main characters of this show are Mia-Nosha, of course. I found it really fascinating. Again, this is me coming at my own confirmation bias, but I want to see if it plays things out. So when you show an illegal and potentially oppressed witch coven, usually we want to hear a story then of, okay, they're illegal and potentially oppressed because they were exploring, they were curious about something that's different. And that may have been true. I'm not denying that may have been true. What we see, at least with May as an 8-year-old, that she's insisting on the certainty and familiarity and her attachment to her family of an illegal and potentially oppressed witch coven. Right. That's where they locate the comfortable familiarity.
Mhm.
On the other hand, Asha, because I think later, late Republic, they tell the opposite story, right? And I think with the Night Sisters, they do a little bit.
I mean, with the Night Sisters, though, they're kind of not that.
Not
great.
necessarily the Night Sisters, but even with Ahsoka, they tell this opposite story a little bit. From Asha, who
Mhm.
is curious to explore the wide diversity of the galaxy,
Mhm.
where there's other kids, and she can be a kid and just be genuine to what she wants.
Mhm.
And the thing she wants is to join the state religion. Her dream is of joining the Jedi, and that's not because of the state religion, but because I'm curious to what about it appeals to her, but because they're across the galaxy, she can go explore the galaxy. There's the parallel to Anakin.
More like Luke a little bit too.
And Luke, for sure. But I mean, directly, not in a weird force way, but in just a very genuine, simple to accept character parallel to Anakin. She's that drawing in the book isn't new. She's been drawing that thing for a while. She's heard stories about. She's at least heard myths. She's probably heard legends about how the Jedi defeated the Nile, how they brought about Lina So's great works, how maybe even how interesting, Vernestra and her adventures with the Nile, and Avar Kriss, the hero of Hetzel, and all these stories of the Jedi going out and actually using the Force for what she would say is for good. And again, it's an all too simple binary that Asha is going to have challenged for sure. But it's just fascinating how even in this moment, knowing that would come, Leslie Helden plays with even our distrust of the Jedi, leads us to distrust, but also uphold our distrust of the Jedi. Because I do think, and here's where I'm predicting, and here's where I'm kind of would want to nuance Nathan's perspective here. I don't think the Jedi are, and I'm speculating now. I don't think the Jedi are directly responsible for the fire. I think it's more likely the Sith are, frankly. I think the fact that the Jedi are indirectly responsible enough for whatever happened, that's enough for Torvin to say, we thought we were doing the right thing. Maybe they lead the Sith there. Maybe they're careless. Maybe they're not aware of the surroundings. Maybe they're arrogant and they think they're aware of the surroundings but aren't. The real character question then, is that going to be enough for Asha to lose her faith in the Jedi? Or are her and Soul, because Soul, he's going to hopefully find the courage to tell the truth about that. Are Soul and Asha going to be able to come through and acknowledge the truth of it, of a bad situation, and yet, forgive themselves, forgive others, learn to actually say, okay, what can we do? Learn to pass on failure. Who said that, right?
Or dark thought. I've always had this dark thought about the Acolyte. Osha becomes the Acolyte in the end. She falls. It's sort of like,
so that's the opposite,
it's,
right?
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
Is to say, is it not enough? And they aren't able to pass on the mastery of their failure.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's my spiel.
No, No, I think it's good. It's good. I mean, I don't want that for OSHA, like on a personal level, but it's sort of something I always keep in mind. Like, oh gosh, will OSHA, find out and like get really mad, and like that's the tragedy. This is not going to end well for anybody. But I guess that's a good way to segue into the Jedi themselves. I originally had them earlier in the notes, but we talked about the witches. So okay. So the thing about the Jedi, and why they're so complicated to talk about, is the Sith of this time, and by the time we get to Palpatine Plagueis, why they are the bad guys, because they want to dominate the Force. That is Plagueis' whole thing. Like he was saying, that is like they want to take the Force, take that destructive power, like this is ours. We're going to use it. We're going to make things because we say so. To heck with you, Force.
Yeah.
Like Force, like Jedi, more or less they do wield the Force, but they also think like we are one with it. We let it guide us. We let it control us, and we control their actions. Although one does say, but partially obey your commands. Although I think it's more of a nuanced thing of like, hey Force, can you help me out here? I need to do this. Push somebody for me for a second. Maybe not dominate, but definitely like help me out here, Force.
Sure.
But the thing is, Jedi right now are an arm of a governmental body. I don't know technically if Jediism is a state religion or just the Dom with the Jedi are. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea if the Republic had a state religion or not, or what's going on with that.
So the reason I'll just jump in there. The reason I think I'm going that direction is because, like, they're talking about the Jedi having rights, and it's like this covenant is illegal under Republic law, sort of, and that the Jedi are enforcing that or enacting in that, and they're empowered to act given that legal reality.
I have to relook at that line again because I remember other friend daughter Farrah talking about the Star Wars Explained. She said the thing. She said the line is like, I think it's not exactly that, but there's something definitely going on. But my point is, they are an arm of the government. They are, very much an arm of they are a judicial arm of the government, and therefore their jurisdiction only really goes to Republic's borders, right? Like, we talked about Qui-Gon. Why didn't Qui-Gon here to free slaves? Well, Tatooine's not part of the Republic, so slavery, illegalism. Sorry, can't help you there.
A job to do.
Well, that too, but it's like, it's like even Yoda once said, cannot free slaves on Tatooine because not our job, on our jurisdiction is, and we don't want to cause problems for other worlds and whatnot. It's like it's like if I'm a police officer in Canada, I have no jurisdiction over your house. Like, why am I coming to your house going like, this is the American police, open up?
So that's interesting. The slavery example. I just want to jump in quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
The slavery example brings this up, right? We believe Qui-Gon should have at least tried to do something, or tried to, when he gets back to Coruscant, do something. We know Sabe tries to do something in E.K. Johnson's novels. The Jedi, like Torben says, we thought we were doing the right thing. So, jurisdiction, yes, in terms of being legally empowered, but let's talk about this. They believe they're morally empowered to do what they're doing, because for them it's not just the Republic, but it's also the galaxy and the balance of the Force. For in their perspective, finding kids and rescuing them, in their perspective, rescuing them from this coven to bring them to the Jedi Temple to be trained as a Padawan is good for the kids. It's good for the Jedi. It's good for the Force. And so that's jurisdiction enough for them to go in. Anyway.
I mean, here's a hot take, maybe. What might be considered morally right is not what's always legally.
Well, that's true too.
We're good, or even not good, but
that's Martin Luther King, right? I mean, Letter from Birmingham Jail. That's the classic.
That's true.
Laws are relative, but love is the absolute.
obviously, but also, this is a Jedi Order that is legally bound to a institution of the Senate. They are an arm of the Senate. The Senate says, Jedi, go to this world.
Are they an arm of the Senate yet?
Yes, I think yeah. I mean, that's the Republic are.
That they can like inform the Senate. But
I've always gotten the impression that they very much are part of the. They are very much part of the institutional organization of the Republic.
I guess it's the question like how independent they are. Just because I know by the late Republic, sure.
I mean, I'm sure they're given quite a lot of autonomy. As an organization, for sure. Like any, I don't know,
I mean, I guess I'm just this semantics, but yeah, like I think we're agreed that they're acting as they're empowered as agents of the state because they're Jedi.
I mean, it's kind of
what
keep mentioning the Plagueis novel, but that's kind of Plagueis' whole spiel. It's like, what are you? Are you agents of the Force or are you agents of the Republic? But the Republic does not necessarily mean you're doing the will of the Force, unless you take over the Republic and have Jedi counselors and stuff. Which, I mean, that's Plagueis talking about. He's probably projecting his own views of the world. But, what the government wants and what the cosmic force wants are not always the same thing. Right. Shocker. But yeah, I mean, that is the question. What are the Jedi doing in a planet that is not under their jurisdiction? Mm-hmm. They literally broke into somebody's house.
Yeah.
Like they sliced into their house. What are we doing here? Like you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the taking children, I mean, they said if I remember correctly, they say they have the right to test. I don't think they have the right to necessarily train. And then even Soul's like, hey, we don't take the kids unless the parents and the community permit it. But even he's probably saying what's more or less true. And also, I wanted to bring this up because it's always something. Again, Darth the Ferrix, they give me all my good ideas. That's why we're gonna have them on. Yeah. But they brought up a great point. It's like probably in Republic territory, this does not go as tensely. Like probably if we're on Coruscant, Naboo. Ahsoka's home planet. It's like if the Jedi come and say, "Hey, can we test your kid?" We think they're force sensitive. The parents are probably like, "Oh my gosh, my kid is gonna join the greatest organization in the world! Hallelujah! This is an honor, a privilege." Maybe in some cases a little sadder in terms of like, I'm poor as heck, so I want to give my kid up to someone to get feed and it's like free college, guaranteed education, food.
Well,
a good life, as far as
in the institution that is the most respected in the galaxy.
Right. And probably if you're living in squalor and you get to live in the Jedi Temple, like that's probably an upgrade. But here in this Coven of Witches far away, they're like, he's broke into our house. Yeah. And what are you even doing here? We're not Republic territory. You don't belong here, which they don't. Mm-hmm. So sort of like what's going on. But also, it's good to remember also the Jedi are not a homogenous thing in this episode, and I think this is something I want to bring up. We have Indar, who is very cold, like, hey, let's test that kid or else. What are you doing? Yeah. Soul is far more, kinder about it. I think, and this is where, I'm going to ramble on for a little bit because I have thoughts. I genuinely believe that Soul is a good person. I genuinely believe he is a good-hearted person. I think if you had a machine that could measure goodness, Soul would break the machine because he is so good. I do genuinely believe what they're doing is right. But I also think this is going to be a situation where a good person did something wrong and he's still dealing with it to this day. Obviously, we haven't seen that side of it yet. But I don't think Soul's the Sith Lord. He's done something malevolent.
Yeah,
I just think he thought he was doing the right thing. Yeah. Something happened, and I think he's not dealing with it properly. Right. And then Torbett and the Kelnaka are just kind of there. I kind of just think they're just the Jedi there in the mission. But the Jedi are there for some reason. We don't know why. It's a little weird why they're at a planet. I do think Soul has the best intentions for the kids.
Yeah.
And then Dara's kind of like, hey, these evil witches, what are they doing with kids? I don't like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll let you talk now.
Well, again, that brings up the quote. You must have the courage to say what you want. I want to be a Jedi. You must have the courage to speak the truth. And yeah, like I was saying before, it'd be Soul's journey to be able to speak the truth about what happened here, because he doesn't necessarily. He doesn't. I mean, clearly he's lying to Asha. Maybe he doesn't actually know himself what happened. But like, if anything, this episode shows us May didn't start the fire. She just burned a book. She certainly didn't do anything intentionally. She wouldn't.
She did try to kill her sisters, though. That's what she did say.
I don't even know about that. I think she was just closing the door and burning the book, so she couldn't stop it.
That's true.
I think she said she'd kill her, but that's a shadow of the dark side, like a hint of the dark side.
May is a very destructive kid, though. I'll say that.
She is destructive. The Soul. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons that quote resonated. And again, this is another real world thing here. Is truth and reconciliation. That's where my mind went to. Is the courage to speak the truth about our own failures. That's, again, the greatest teacher failures. We are, and this is partly the cancellation thing a little bit, but also just even before that, the need to have good PR. They need to put up a brave face and be on brand and defend the institution. For how many decades did it take us to take the Anglican Church of Canada to acknowledge the residential schools? How many decades does it take all these churches to do that? And finally saying, oh, we have to, because if we believe in the truth, first of all, we believe that this really happened, and so we have to take responsibility for it. Secondly, if we believe in the truth will set us free. And I don't mean release us from our obligations, but the Force sees what happens. The Force knows what happens in this fire. God knows what happened in the residential schools, right? The way it's worked out, and it's complicated and controversial sometimes, is that I mean, actually, another our Roman Catholic diocese is just filed for bankruptcy because of the sex abuse crisis. Ideally, there's reparations. Ideally, there's justice as best they can make it. Usually, what happens is there's a negotiated settlement where say, okay, well, we're doing all this other good stuff now, right? We're being a center for Indigenous culture and language, in community and gathering, and faith, above all. Yeah, we in our cities, we have soup kitchens and just advocating for systemic change and systemic justice for Indigenous communities and for others. So if we did give what we owed, we'd cease to exist because we wouldn't have any money. And so the thing is, though, that's a tragic reality. And you could ask, do we really deserve to exist then as a church? I don't know. I think that's actually kind of the not the right question. Is the real question is what we can do, what can we do to be truthful now? How can we pass on failure as in the mastery of failure, as in the lesson of failure? And part of it is to be truthful about failure, to be truthful and honest about that. That there is something good and constructive and community building and credibility building about naming the truth of failure. And yeah, again, that's why there's my confirmation bias. That's why I hope that is Soul's story. So,
it seems like it's heading that way, just in terms of like narrative, not even just no confirmation bias needed. I just feel like it's just like
I mean, I think other people will say no, they're going to keep upholding the lie, and maybe that's true. I'll be dissatisfied by that, but
I mean, I would hope not, but only just from a structure standpoint of how many seasons is this thing going to get and how long are we going to drag it out. Because just from a narrative standpoint, it's like the twin thing. It's like if we dragged out the twin thing for like 3 episodes or 4 episodes, like I would have been like,
Yeah, that would have been silly. Yeah.
Or even just did Osha really do it? And, like, everyone's suspicious of her. It's like, we move that on. Like, come on. But, I mean, at first, I'll comment a couple things. One, I think Star Wars, I think at least in terms of the universe of Star Wars is like, yes, the Jedi have very much the right to exist. They can exist. I think that was Last Jedi saying they can exist. Rey will not be the last Jedi.
As in, there's something good that can always come out of.
Yeah. I think that is very much the lesson there.
Yeah.
You know, let's think here. In terms of, I want to go back to the May and Osha just for a second because we talked about this a little bit. I think it's interesting though, and we didn't talk about it. But I'm curious because you didn't mention it. Their portrayal as children, I found it really interesting, right? Like May, as I said, she's kind of a destructive child. Just the way she was playing with the butterfly, she kind of was like ready to tear out its little wings a little bit. I don't think she's an evil kid. I don't know. I don't mean.
Can kids be evil? I mean,
well, some kids probably can. There's definitely some psycho kids.
Yeah,
probably. I realize
a whole other moral question. Yeah,
I mean, it's just a psychological. There are sociopaths who are grown up. That is just a therapeutic thing.
Yeah,
but but yeah, in terms of like, there's definitely like he's a destructive kid. He's an aggressive kid, a little bit. She kind of falls into the selfish nature of the darks of the where Anakin fell with like. She didn't want to let go of Osha. She didn't want Osha to leave. She's like, Osha is mine.
Yeah.
May's like, no, I want more than that. Osha. There's a little hint of Osha maybe having some dark with the way she treated the butterfly, but she wasn't that aggressive about it. But she's definitely testing her powers a little bit. But Osha isn't as not as gun ho about the witch thing, but also just not as gun ho about but also just kind of like he's a lot more gentle. And I was curious if you picked up on that, just like, oh yeah, May is a very aggressive kid. And it's like, no wonder she is the dark one.
So I thought about it, and what's really motivating her as a person, right?
Right.
And for her, I mean, this real fear of change, resistance to change.
No one likes change.
Losing her sister. And it's not simply that she goes away; it's that she doesn't want to even stay and do the thing that we've brought up to do. She's questioning that. How dare she question that? When I'm so enthusiastic and I want to share everything, it gets to be a possessive thing. Whereas Osha, I mean, she says she loves May. They have the rhyme,
Right.
All that. Although I don't know how much Osha buys into it as much, but yeah, definitely. I mean, again, definitely playing into fear of loss. There's another Anakin. There's Anakin Barrel of Revenge of the Sith, right? Fear of losing,
and fear of change too. Anakin didn't like change.
Yeah. Fear of change. Fear of losing Shmi. Fear of losing Padme. May is afraid of losing Osha. To prevent it. So, well, I won't let you. In a very realistically immature way, like how a kid will have these kind of delusions of grandeur about that. It definitely portended where we see them a little bit. I mean, both in terms of Asha joins the Jedi, and May is probably the Sith Acolyte or whoever. It's at least doing these things, going around
Not
being
good
very
things.
Sithy. She's being very Sithy.
Yeah.
Let's say that. But also, I mean, May is tempted to find that belonging in this Sith thing. Asha, she spends her time with the Jedi, but then she leaves again. And, maybe that's an ambiguity, complication for her. But she doesn't want to join. And maybe she's resisting a sense of belonging, in part because she thought that the person she belonged most to wanted to control her, wanted to keep her from going, and she believes destroyed her family. So
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking, speaking of the kid, can kids be evil? Can kids have choices? And this is, I think we'll make this our last point. This is something I definitely want to talk about because it's definitely this episode is there's, I think on this podcast as a fandom, we've always talked about the whole Jedi taking kids.
Yeah.
Well, not taking kids. Well, they take kids, but it's the parents let them. They don't just come in and steal the babies.
Yeah.
I feel like people make it more malevolent than it actually is. But they asked if the kid can train when they're young, when they're babies, when they don't have a choice in the matter. And on the one hand, there is a part of me that understands why, at least from like an in-universe perspective, why they do that because, if there are, sometimes adjusting to Jedi life is hard, and if you have, I think their reasoning is if we kind of get them when they're young, they can kind of become stoic, unattached kids, not learn to attach, and then we don't have to worry about some of them falling to the dark side. I mean, I always say for every Luke Skywalker, there was an Anakin Skywalker, and a Ben Solo, and look what happened there. And I'm sure there were some Legends examples too. But on the other hand, it's like, do we want to? Should the kids have a choice? Should the kids be allowed to have a choice? Should they not have a choice? But also, it's like, well, what if they don't like the lifestyle of a Jedi? I mean, sure, they get to leave, but it sounds like once you leave, it's like, well, your skills of Force power don't really seem to benefit you out unless you're doing like magic tricks. And in Ocha's case, I love her agency, but at the same time, it's like kids don't always make the best choices. Adults don't always make the best choices either. Yeah, but at least when you're 18, it's like, okay, once you're 18, it's like that's sort of at least on a legal definition, but not scientifically. Your brain is ready to make a choice of like, do I want to commit myself to a life of non-attachment, Force powers, and just servitude? Right? Like an 8-year-old, it's like I don't know. Like, what does an 8-year-old know? Like like it's like divorce courts. Like 8-year-old kids wants to live with the one parent because like the one parent gets them pizza and doesn't really make them go to school. Sure, but that's not a great choice for the kid.
I don't know if the court would allow that.
But it's sort of like if we said the court, should the child get to decide what's best for them? But I mean, I guess that's also why one mother and Yasha and Asaya like kind of has the final say, but discusses with the community, but definitely will take the child's opinions into account as well. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, what has your stance been on this child thing, Matthew? I've always just kind of been curious. Like, it's complicated. I think it's very complicated for a lot of both moral reasons and even in-universe reasons.
I mean, first of all, to say they're both 1 year younger than Anakin, right? He definitely wants to go. Again, there's a similar thing. Anakin and Asha want to go because
and Shmi lets him go.
And Shmi lets him go. Anasaya may have let her go. We don't know. Anasaya has complicated balances. Like she could have said, "Okay, we'll let you go, but we'll let her go, but you guys have to leave us alone," kind of thing, or like use that as almost a bargaining chip, which would have been weird and complicated. But this episode was weird and complicated enough as it is. Okay. Yeah, I mean, kids can have choices. It's just that they're not necessarily going to be the most permanent. And like what Mother Anasaya says, right? You can make your choice, but as you grow, that'll change. I do like. I'll say a few things. I mean, 8 is definitely a lot older than what we see in the High Republic novels or in Clone Wars. Oddly enough, like both ends of this, they're all a lot younger. Like Soul is 4.
That's right. He was 4. I forgot he got that.
What he says, and he appeals to Asha's sense of wanting to be different and stand out, which again ends up not working out because she wants to be different and stands out. She wants to go be a mechanic and not be so as serious as Yord, and finally getting Yord in. So I just gotta do this. Just gotta do this.
Yord horde.
Yeah, I think the real answer is what they want in this moment. What does that represent for them? What does that
Right.
represent? I mean, because this episode is pretty clear. It does represent their future path
Of course.
in
Of
different ways.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'll mention this though because you brought this. You brought up different.
Mhm.
And this is again like I feel like for every argument against the child thing, I can bring up one for the child
Yeah.
thing. Is if you're a kid, I
Mhm.
remember Star Wars kind of. If you're a kid and it's like you're different,
Yeah.
and it's like in this case you have superpowers where if you get mad, you can accidentally choke someone to death.
Yep.
That's how force powers can manifest themselves. You know, and no one else is like that. You're the only person who can do that. And then a bunch of people come and say, "Hey, it's a bunch of kids just like you who can do these
Yeah.
powers. Maybe you want to hone on them." And like, yeah, I mean, don't it's like, wouldn't you want to be around other kids who are kind of like you? And that
Mhm.
can be a metaphor for autistic kids who want to be around people like us, disabled kids. Not to bring up this franchise too much, but that's kind of a little aspect of Harry Potter, with like Harry's the wizard. It's like here are other kids just like me who have similar issues.
Mhm.
So and that's another reason why I'm not saying Jedi school is the only right choice, but in the go to become a Jedi, learn the
Mhm.
ways of the Force. Osha and May are the only kids there.
Yeah.
Everyone else is an adult. There is something to be said of like, hey, there are other kids in this world. Let's maybe be with them, study. Don't hone your power so you don't accidentally blow somebody your head up. But
Roll a
also,
point. Yeah.
I know, or and be with people like you, kind of that sense of
Yeah.
community.
Um.
Uh,
Yeah. Sorry if you were keep going. If you
no,
were.
no, that was it. That was kind of just.
Yeah. I mean that is a great point. And in the Republic, I'll say a few things. In the Republic, there is more of just this cultural understanding that giving your kid to the Jedi is a good thing.
Mhm.
Is accepted, and it's sad that it's more accepted. Like arranged marriages, right?
Right.
Like in the West, we don't quite understand that, but in other contexts, it's completely accepted and natural, and not considered oppressive necessarily. Um, yeah, with Osha, I mean that really helps us understand what kind of the inner psychology that is projected on the myth of the Jedi that she has, right?
Yeah.
She says, look how their robes, look how their lightsabers, and all that. None of which has anything to actually do with what she's actually after. She's
Yeah.
after this kind of belonging, and to say that, yeah, I mean, we say detachment.
Mhm.
They're not detached. That's actually kind of this weird myth. Their attachment is to each other, and that gets complicated when they're actually they have to go on missions and different things that require separation or death. you know, um,
Yeah.
and that may be a failing of the Jedi that is that they're so extreme with the non-attachment. Um, Asha's definitely looking for those connections, even if she's also looking for diversity, belonging for herself. Maybe that is the commonality with May. They're both looking for belonging because in part because everyone's looking for belonging. They're honest about it. With May, it's with Asha and with the coven. With Osha, it's elsewhere. It's with the Jedi potentially. What does he say? Yeah, in the High Republic novels, they do a really great job of showing those attachments,
Mhm.
of showing how at that time they did give leeway and space for these teenagers, especially to figure it out in time, so that when they're 18, they're ready to become a knight and actually commit to that or not. And yeah, uh, spoiler alert: Lula Talasola doesn't commit to it. She says, "No, I'm gonna chuck these robes. I want to go off with Zine and do my thing." And that's considered sad and complicated, but okay, that's her path. I wonder, I mean, I think about this, Obi-Wan and Satine. Um, if by that point there is too much of a stigma to leave the order for that, right? Um, I mean, Dooku as a master leaving the order, but Obi-Wan was a Padawan.
Mhm.
If Anakin had left the order for Padme, yeah, there would be too much of a stigma, and that really pressed things and pressed the whole situation with it, wanting to keep everything a secret.
Maybe
Not
my only.
getting, you know.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was gonna say my only counter with Obi-Wan would be, I don't think he regretted not leaving by the end.
No, that's true. It's just that it wasn't really even an option. Like they didn't even talk about it. You could barely even think about it until decades later.
I mean that's fair, but like,
Yeah.
and to me, like, why Obi-Wan, I would say Obi-Wan, like when Maul killed her, it's like, well, Obi-Wan did the Jedi thing of like, he's one with the Force. Not just, he was sad, but it's like, he was like,
sure, yeah, he never regretted it. No, but
well, Anakin does not healthy things with his problems.
Yeah.
And so does Dooku to some extent.
Mhm.
Well, yes. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Osha looks for belonging.
Mhm.
And there is something to be said about having a Force child not be with other Force children that could, not necessarily work out in the real life, unless, of course, their powers just kind of fade off after a while. But if they don't, like, they're kind of isolated and, probably considered a freak in some cases. You know how kids are. Kids can't be cruel. That's true.
So that again raises the question: is Soul manipulating her with a sob story? That may be true. Is he, tapping into something that she really is experiencing, feeling? Is it legitimate persuasion? I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, he's the only place she has to go. Speaking of attachments, right? And she'll have Jackie's comment in our mind, right?
Oh yeah.
There's this attachment to her that maybe is what's keeping him from telling the truth, but will hopefully maybe even help him tell the truth. I don't know.
It's it's funny. I compared Soul to Qui-Gon, and I would say, I mean, that comparison is kind of there, but I honestly think Qui-Gon had the attachment thing a lot more mastered than Soul does at the moment. Like, I'm sure he would have been very upset if Obi-Wan died, of course, of course. But, I do think when, like, if he had lived and, Obi-Wan had graduated, his Jedi Padawaning, I think Obi-Wan would probably be like, time to leave the nest, move on with your life, Obi-Wan. I will, if you ever need to talk, of course we can talk, but it's like, move on. But Soul is like still kind of haunted by Osha in some way.
Well, I mean, and Qui-Gon is all, Obi-Wan's ready. Let's go to Anakin.
That too. In terms of what Soul said, are we talking about like the 4-year-old story or the final thing that Soul said at the end of the episode?
Kind of both. I mean, well, so at the end of the day, well, so what I mean in terms of the attachment, in terms of his attachment to Osha, I mean, the difference with Qui-Gon is it's in this deeply tragic circumstance, and he's overwhelmed with empathy for her. To a degree, this probably goes too far. Potentially, in the moment, there's nothing he could do, but he never regulates that, and it's has this weird lie attached to it. And so again, I really hope this show's about him reconciling with that, and not the show itself, like it's about Asha and May, but
I can't think of like the motivation behind why he would say May started the fire unless he just genuinely believed it. But his story about him being 4 years old, like, no, I think he's just genuine about that. I 100%
just why is he telling her that in that moment? It makes sense. But.
I mean, he's 4. That's not necessarily that's enough to be cognitive, kind of. So
I just know there are going to be folks who are like, "Oh, he's manipulating her."
I mean, I don't. I'm not in that camp. I think he's too genuine to manipulate in that sense right now.
Yeah,
I think
that's the thing. This episode, confirmation bias. There's the theme. It's confirmation bias.
Yeah. I just think he just
in universe and out of universe. Yeah.
I think he just sees another bright-eyed kid who's like really wants to be a Jedi, and he's thinking, well, that's what she wants. Like maybe I can just help her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
Unless you had one more thing you wanted to talk about that I forgot about.
Except to say that we haven't covered everything because this episode is going to keep on being. It's going to live on. I mean, for another I guess 22 hours. But if that changes, it might not, right?
22-hour podcast. Let's go.
But you do it. Don't joke, Joel. You're not kidding. No, but to say again, I love just how Leslie just relentlessly refused to give us a perspective. And so we really pull out what we want, and that's a mirror. Why did everything what Din said? Why does that matter to him? Why is that important? Everything I was saying about the Jedi and truth and reconciliation. Why is that important to me? Everything. So
why is Plague so important to me? Because I read the dang book as a kid, and I'm waiting.
What is the connection of Plague? Yeah. What secret experiments are you having going on back there, Joel? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Nah,
Okay. That's good. Fun times. I think we're 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yes.
Good time to wrap things up. Thanks everyone for joining us in the comments, folks.
Thank you, Din, if you're listening.
Yes, we'll definitely. Thanks, Din, for coming on. Follow him at F105 Music, I believe. And check him out there and on Spotify F105. Baby Makes 3 Mix. If you're on the West Coast, if you're in LA, if you're in Vancouver, Victoria rather, check out his tour. He'll be back on. We'll get him on. Maybe to like a 1 hour sit down, just to actually go through maybe some. I don't know about this episode necessarily, but some other thing, some Acolyte thing. I don't know. Probably with the Acolyte. We'll figure it out. This was fun. I love the chaos of this episode. How we weeds out. I love the chaos of this episode. I love the chaos of Destiny, weeding out the fandom menace, coming out of the woodwork again. There it is.
Be a long couple.
Yeah, there we go. So anyway, yes, thanks everyone for joining us in the comments. Please do let us know what you thought. Let us know. And seriously, if you think the Jedi are going to be the villain, why is that? Why do you want that? Why do you think that? Do you hate that? And you're so opposed to it that you're not going to watch the show anymore. Whatever it is, I think I want to hear it. Let's just put it that way. So let us know what you thought. Comment below. All these comment boxes are here to stay on YouTube, on Facebook, etc., on Twitch, Twitter, etc. Please do give this video a like and a share and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Joel, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID2021, again, JID2021 on Twitter. Of course, at IonCanPod, at EYEONCANONPOD. Of course, on the Star Wars Underworld Discord. We haven't decided what we're going to do this week. I have to talk a bit about that, but we hope to do something. Yes.
You do something at all. Good job. Yeah, and again about the Discord conversations there. Let us know what you thought about this episode. What do you think of the chaos of Ion Canon tonight? Thought of Destiny specifically. Again, that it's a fascinating conversation. So let us know on the Discord, of course. Again, at Ion Canon Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. You can follow me on Twitter, NEUG485. We're talking about the Euros, Copa America, TFC, but also Oilers, but Star Wars, the Acolyte, different things. On Instagram, MNEUG1138. A lot of food in there. That's changing soon. I will. That might actually be changing this Friday. We'll see what I'm able to do there. Instagram and Threads at MNEUG1138 because my name is Matthew Neugebauer and I like Star Wars. So there you go. That's why I explained your name. There we go. Next week. What are we doing next week, Joel? Oh yeah, first of all, this Wednesday, forgot to mention, Chris Abbott and I, Darth Vader number 47, Jango Fett number 4. There are other Star Wars stories coming out this week, believe it or not. At least just one, Jango Fett number 4. I haven't got my insider issue in yet, so I know there's another short story with keeping up with the Adrens on the inside the Occlusion Zone, but just Jango Fett number 4 comes out this Wednesday. So Chris and I are talking about Darth Vader 47 and Jango number 4 on Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Underworld YouTube channel and everywhere else. And of course, the flagship, 9 p.m. Eastern, Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific. Talking about the Acolyte, not Destiny, as they talked about last week. Talking about the episode that drops in 22 hours from now. So keep it locked right here for that. Is it 22 hours? Is my math going crazy? It was 21 hours. Right. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, keep it locked here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. Next week, Joel, what are we doing next week? What are we talking about next week?
There's a show called The Acolyte. I know it's some. It got low audience score reviews. Maybe we should. I don't know. No, we're gonna keep going, folks.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep going.
There we go. Keep it right along. Yeah, with the Acolyte episode 4. Going back, we know your order's in it. We know your order's in it.
10 out of 10 already. Yours.
The series, I don't care. Even if there are gripes, I might have some things about acting or pacing or whatever. Just this whole series, 10 out of 10. I've already given it. It's already fine. For the questions it asks, it's already, or like Din was saying, it's just Leslie's thinking on a level and making us think on a level. And so a level that we haven't thought about really since Kenobi, since The Last Jedi. And so I guess Clone Wars, Bad Batch does a little bit, but no,
Ahsoka.
even deeper.
Oh wait, we didn't talk about Ahsoka. That's right. Dang it.
Yeah.
Curse you, actors.
So yeah, that well the director, the film companies.
Darn you, film companies.
Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about The Acolyte next week, episode 4. So yeah, check it out right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Until then, Joel, for Light and Life.